Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon tank, and today we are going to be doing some basic maintenance on it. I'm going to actually get started doing a chemi-clean treatment, and we're going to try to tackle some of that green cyanobacteria that's growing in the tank. The first thing that I'm going to do is get in there with a siphon, and I'm going to physically remove as much of the cyanobacteria as I can so that we have as little of it to treat as possible. I'm probably not going to bother setting the camera up to do all of the in-between stuff. I've done that plenty of times in the past. It's not going to be any different than any other time. I'm just going to get in there with a siphon hose. We're going to get some of that cyanobacteria out of there. I'm not really worried about gravel vacuuming or trimming the plants or messing with the filter or anything like that. We're just kind of focusing on the cyanobacteria in this video. So afterwards, we'll get to see the tank once it's a little more cleaned up. I'll get some of these lights turned out so we don't have all the glare on the tank and everything. Just wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like before. And there's your after. So I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I got in there and I vacuumed out a bunch of that cyanobacteria. I also got a bunch of the mulm and stuff out of there, but my main goal was to remove as much of that cyanobacteria as I reasonably could without going crazy about it. Remember, we are treating the tank, so I just wanted to reduce it to a reasonable amount, again, without going crazy in there. So the way I do that, if you've never seen it before, is I take a open-ended hose rather than the gravel vac, and it's just a little piece of vinyl tubing that you can get at any hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, any place like that. It's about twice the diameter of a standard airline. You can use the airline if you want, but I find that's a little too small and it tends to get clogged up fairly easily. If you use one that's much larger than this, like the diameter of the hose that's attached to the gravel vac, if you just pulled the plastic vac part off the end and just use the hose, that tends to suck water out of the tank so quickly that it's just a little too vigorous. You got to work really quickly to try to get anything out of the tank before your tank is empty or your 5-gallon bucket's full or whatever. So somewhere in the middle of the road, about this size, works really well. You get a good amount of suction, and you can really get a lot of big chunky cyanobacteria. You can get mulm and crud and all kinds of stuff out of there with this, but it does not suck water out of the tank so quickly that you've got to work fast while you're doing it. You can take your time and be a little more meticulous about it. And so I did 2 5-gallon buckets. One bucket got me about halfway across the tank, and then I had to refill, or dump it out rather, empty the bucket, and the second bucket got me the other way across the tank. And then I went in after that and used the regular gravel vac, the standard gravel vac, and I got a bunch of the mulm and crud, and while that was draining, I wiped the glass down. My filter intake was actually so clogged up with roots and stuff from the Java that was trailing into it. You can see how this Java gets these really long trailing roots on it. And those had all gone up into the filter intake, and it was getting all clogged up, so I pulled a bunch of that out. I got the filter intake opened up. I cut all the roots back so nothing can flow back into it other than all of the crud that was swirling around in the tank. It's probably not going to be a bad idea to get in there and clean that filter intake off again now that the tank is sort of cleared up and settled down. And then of course I did the chemi-clean treatment, which includes putting those air stones in there. If you're going to do any kind of chemi-clean or ultralife, whichever product you use, it's going to do basically the same thing, and you really need to put an air stone in the tank, a vigorous air stone. You want as much gas exchange and oxygenation as possible when you're doing one of these treatments, because the treatment does oxidize the bacteria that's in the tank, and that process uses up the oxygen that's in the tank. So you want to make sure you've got really good vigorous gas exchange so that the oxygen can be replaced as it gets used up. So I've got a air pump that is for a 100-gallon tank, and I've got it split into 2 air stones. One is sort of simultaneously putting a lot of really vigorous bubbles up to the surface, but it's also getting a lot of those bubbles caught in that 1,500 gallon per hour power head, which is blowing just micro bubbles all through the tank. I mean, you can see everywhere. It looks like detritus swirling around, but it's not. Those are micro bubbles. And then of course at this end of the tank I have another air stone, which is just free flowing, and it's just blowing up to the surface where I'm getting a lot of really good vigorous surface agitation. Little trick I do is I run, well, I kind of missed, but I'll adjust that in a moment now that I see that it's missed. But I run the air stone, or the air line, right through the groove in the clothespin, and then I put the clothespin on it, and that way closing the lid never pinches off my air line, and it keeps the lid from getting all gunked up and whatnot. So there you go. We have now officially gotten started on a ChemiClean treatment on this tank. So it'll be a couple of days. I'll get in there, do another water change. I'll probably put another dose in there, and so on and so forth. And 6 months from now, we'll probably be shooting the same video over again, because no matter what I do, the cyanobacteria always comes back. But I do get in there and get on top of it from time to time, and that's all just part of the maintenance of my aquariums. Again, it's not hurting anything, it just doesn't look great once it starts getting really overwhelming in there. So hopefully this cyanobacteria or ChemiClean treatment will get on top of it, at least for a little while. So there you go, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss anything I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.